Now, in this video, we will discuss the concept of block credit in GST. In certain cases, GST credit is ineligible. These are covered by the section 17(5) of CGST Act. What is the meaning of GST credit ineligible? It means when certain items are purchased, the GST credit is not allowed. It becomes a cost to the company or cost to the person who is purchasing those items, even though that person, that recipient, is registered under GST and it is going to be used, that material, that items, for the purpose of furtherance of business. Even if the GST policy statement of the GST law is that seamless flow of credit on certain items, GST credit is blocked. We will discuss in this video also the reason why these credits are blocked. Before going into the details of what are the items covered under section 17(5), let's spend some time on the opening paragraph of section 17(5). It reads as, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1 of section 16 and subsection 1 of section 18, input tax credit is not available in respect of the following, namely. So three terms are important here. One is notwithstanding, second in respect of, and third namely. Notwithstanding, what is the meaning of notwithstanding? Notwithstanding means it overrides the provision of section 16 and section 18 of CGST Act. Let's take one example that a company purchased a motor car having the seating capacity 5 persons to be used by its salesperson, that is to be used for the business purpose. As per section 16, the section 16 is basically deals with enabling provision of input tax credit. The GST credit is available. He purchased it, the businessman purchased it, the motor vehicle which is going to be used by its salesperson, that is for furtherance of business. However, it is specifically covered under section 17(5) that the GST credit is not eligible. Therefore, one cannot avail the GST credit on motor car even if it is used in furtherance of business, because it is specifically blocked under section 17(5), and section 17(5) override the provision of section 16, which is enabling provision of input tax credit. Now coming to the next is in respect of. In respect of means on, attributable to, which narrows down the scope of the provision. Means you should not stretch it further to add certain items by your imagination. That is the meaning of in respect of. It restricts the scope of the section. Namely, last point is namely. Namely means it is an exhaustive list. Nothing should be added beyond that list. So it further narrows down the scope of the provision. It means it is exhaustive. You should not add certain things by using your imagination. That is the meaning of namely. There is one more concept, that when to check that GST credit is available or is ineligible. When to check that? That is to be checked at a time when that material, when that item, when that asset is purchased. If subsequently or subsequent event that change the use of that item or asset, you should not go to section 17(5) again and reverse the credit. Let's take one example that a company purchased an air cooler. It uses that air cooler in the office. 1 year before it is purchased, the GST credit was also availed. and after 1 year it gifted that air cooler to one of its vendor. That does not mean due to this event you should not go to section 17(5) to reverse the credit which you have availed 1 year before. Okay, so GST credit eligible, ineligible is to be checked at the initial stage. Subsequent event of change in the usage, you should not go again back to section 17(5) to check the eligibility. If it is ineligible, you should not reverse the GST credit. However, GST law is to be interpreted harmoniously. After 1 year, when the business has gifted that material, gifted that air cooler to one of its vendor, that does not mean that he is relieved. The relief is available. See, you need to go to Schedule 1 of CGST Act, where certain activities is to be deemed to be treated as supply even if without consideration. The first point in Schedule 1 is disposal of any business asset. It means when that air cooler, in this example, when that air cooler is gifted to vendor on which input tax credit was availed, you should not go to section 17(5)(h) to reverse that input credit. However, you need, as per Schedule 1 of CGST Act, you need to add that in the GSTR 1 for the month in which that air cooler was gifted to the vendor. Okay. Now let's go to the specific items or the specific material on which a GST credit is not available. Section 17, subsection 5, clause A, motor vehicle. What is the meaning of this? That on motor vehicle GST credit is not available, which is used for passenger transportation, that is for not for goods transportation, and having a seating capacity less than 13 including driver. However, there are 3 exceptions to this. When it is purchased to be supply as such. What is the meaning of this? It means a dealer who purchased the motor vehicle and selling the motor vehicle. The GST credit is available because he is supplying that motor vehicle as it is. For imparting training, there are certain schools which teaches how to drive that motor vehicle. The GST credit is available, and which is used for further taxable supply of transportation of passenger. It means that motor vehicle is used for transportation of passenger on billing basis. In that case, GST credit is available on the motor vehicle. Let's see some examples to understand this very correctly. Purchase of motor vehicle having a seating capacity of 5 persons by proprietor to be used for business purpose. The GST credit is not available because this motor vehicle is purchased for not for further taxable supply of transportation of passengers. It's having a seating capacity less than 13, therefore the GST credit is not available. On GST credit is not available on motor vehicle means on purchases of motor vehicle. When there is a GST, that GST charged is a cost to the business. Next example is a motor vehicle purchased by the company to be used by its sales team. Same logic, GST credit is not available because it is assumed that in this case the sitting capacity of that motor vehicle is less than 13. It is used by the sales team. It means it is not used for further taxable supply of transportation of passengers. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Third example, Vehicle use for transportation of client's employees on billing basis. In this case, the GST credit is available because it is used for further taxable supply of client's employees on billing basis. Therefore, the GST credit is available on that motor vehicle which is having a seating capacity even if less than 30. Vehicle used for imparting training by driving motor by driving school, the GST credit is available. Where GST motor vehicle purchased and used for the purpose of transportation of employees which is having a seating capacity less than 13, GST credit is not available. Why? Because it is used for transportation of own employees where that motor vehicle is having the seating capacity less than 13. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Next example, vehicle used for transportation of own goods, or whether it is used for client's goods on billing basis. In both these cases, GST credit is available because the restriction is only for the motor vehicle which is to be used for transportation of passenger. In this case, the GST credit is available because that motor vehicle is used for transportation of goods. Last example, motor vehicle purchased on transportation of employees having a seating capacity 30 persons. Therefore, the GST credit is available because it is having a seating capacity more than 13%. Therefore, the GST credit is available. Next point, section 17, subsection 5, clause AA, vessel and aircraft. On purchase of vessel and aircraft, the GST levied is a cost to the business. The GST credit is not available. However, there are certain exceptions when the GST credit is available. When it is used for further taxable supply of transportation of passengers. Second, it is used for transportation of goods. Third, it is used for imparting training. That is how to navigate that vessel, how to fly the aircraft. In those cases, GST credit is available. Otherwise, in all other cases, GST credit on the purchases of vessel and aircraft are not available. Let's take some example to understand it better. Vessel purchase for transportation of employees from shore to rink. For transportation of own employees, it means it is not used for further taxable supply of transportation of passengers. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. The next example, vessel purchased for transportation of passenger from shore to rink on client's employees on billing basis. It means it is used for further taxable supply of transportation of passengers. Therefore, the GST credit on the vessel or on the aircraft is available. Vessel purchase for transportation of own goods, GST credit is available. The restriction is only for transportation of employees. Whether own goods or client's good for further taxable supply on billing basis. In both the cases, GST credit is available, like motor vehicle. Next clause, section 17(5)(ab). What are the three things are covered in this section? Is general insurance, servicing, repair, maintenance of motor vehicle, vessel or aircraft. The GST credit is not available. However, in certain cases, GST credit is available on general insurance, servicing, repair and maintenance of motor vehicle, vessel and aircraft. When the GST credit is available on purchase of motor vehicle, vessel or aircraft, we just now see that if it is used for further taxable supply of passenger on billing basis, it is used for transportation of goods, own goods or client's goods, the GST credit is available. In those cases, The GST credit is available on general insurance, servicing, repair and maintenance also. Okay. The next is that the manufacturer of motor vehicle, vessel and aircraft, the GST credit on general insurance, servicing, repair, maintenance is available. The third exception is when the insurance company given a general insurance of aircraft or vessel or motor vehicle and it is reinsured. That is, the risk is reinsured to other insurance company. The other insurance company will charge a premium and the GST credit on that reinsurance premium is available to the main insurance company. That is not blocked. Let's understand this clause with the help of some examples. Car insurance. On purchase of a car by the company, by the directors using that car for business purpose. The GST credit is not available in this case because the GST credit is not available on purchase of that car. As per section 17(5) clause A, it is used for further business but not for further taxable supply of passenger transportation. Therefore, the GST credit on the car is not available. Therefore, the general insurance, the expense GST credit on the expenses of general insurance, servicing, repair, maintenance of that car is also not available. Servicing cost of the car purchased by the proprietor for business use. The GST credit is not available. Next example is the repair maintenance of the truck, where the GTA service provider avail the entry at the rate of 5% to be paid by the recipient. We all know that in case of GTA service provider is having an option to pay the GST on its own at the rate of 12% or opt for 5% GST to be paid by the recipient under reverse charge mechanism. When the GTA service provider opt for this rate of 5% to be paid by the recipient under reverse charge mechanism, the GST credit on the truck is not available. Therefore, the GST credit of that truck's general insurance, servicing, repair, maintenance is also not available. However, if the GTA service provider opt for payment of GST at the rate of 12% under forward charge, the GST credit, see second last example, the GST credit is available on purchase of the truck or that motor vehicle, and therefore the GST credit on expenses of general insurance, servicing, repair, maintenance is also available. Last example is very interesting. See what it says. A tire of a motor car purchased by the company to be used where that motor car is used by the directors for business purpose. See, what is not allowed is general insurance, services, repair, maintenance under section 17(5) AB. Tires is a goods. The clause cover under this clause covers only services. Therefore, the GST credit is available on tire purchases. Next clause, section 17(5)B. These clause cover lot of items, and there are two proviso also in this clause. Let's see what are the things are covered under section 17(5) clause B. Food and beverages, outdoor catering, beauty treatment, health services, cosmetic, plastic surgery, leasing, hiring of motor vehicle, vessel, aircraft, life insurance, health insurance. If you properly see this, what is happening on these items? The VAT chain comes to an end on these items. It means what? These items are consumed or these services are consumed and there is no further supply. Let's take an example that food and beverages prepared, supplied to the company, and company's employees used, consume it. So government, this is a difference between GST and income tax. In income tax, these expenses are allowed as deduction as either as a staff welfare expenses or exclusively used for business purpose under section 37 of the Income Tax Act. However, how to see the GST law is that the VAT chain of these items comes to an end. That is, these are consumed, and GST is consumption tax. The incidence of the tax is borne by the person who is ultimate consumer. So in case of, let's take an example of health insurance, life insurance of the employees. Company has taken that insurance, but the VAT chain comes to an end. You are ultimate consumer. So government wants a revenue on those. Therefore, the GST credit is ineligible. See the beauty treatment, outdoor catering, food and beverages. The VAT chain comes to an end. There is no further supply. It is consumed. It is consumed. So pay the GST. Correct? So whole purpose of this video is to give you the information why this GST credit is ineligible. Otherwise, if you entered section 17.5 on internet, you will get a list of items within a 30 seconds on which GST credit is not available. But there will be very few videos which will give the information why the GST credit is not available. Your why has to be satisfied. That is the whole purpose of this video. What is the difference between income tax and GST? Do the deep thinking on this. Why the GST credit? GST credit is not available. But why it is not available? Why GST credit on motor vehicle is not available? Because somewhere government is having the mindset that it's very difficult to establish whether that motor vehicle is used for personal purpose or for business purpose. Therefore, GST credit is not available on the motor vehicle. GST is a consumption tax. The ultimate incidence of the tax from manufacturer to wholesaler to dealer to retailer is to be borne by the consumer. Therefore, in these items, the GST credit, even if it is used in a business, even if it is purchased by the person who is registered under GST, the GST credit is not available because these are consumed. The VAT chain comes to an end, and therefore the GST credit is not available on these items. Sorry, I take a lot of time here. There is a proviso to this clause that if it is used for further taxable supply, then the GST credit is available in these items. Let's take one example that a person is a trader in packed drinking water. He purchased the packed drinking water and sells it. The GST credit is available. Packed drinking water cover under food and beverages. However, in case the person who is dealing in packed drinking water, the GST credit is available. Health insurance, life insurance, if the insurance company reinsured that, it means either further supply as it is. Therefore, the GST credit in case of reinsurance business is available. That is this clause. Then the next item is membership of a club, health, fitness, that is gym. Travel benefit to the employees who are on vacation. GST credit is not available. Let's understand this clause with the help of some examples. And this company purchased a pantry material like tea, coffee beans, etc. This GST credit is not available. I already explained that these tea, coffee beans, etc. are consumed. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. This is covered by section 17(5)(b). It's specifically a food and beverages. Packed drinking water purchased by the company to be used in the pantry by the employees, guest, customer, etc. The GST credit is not available. On packed drinking water, GST is 12%. It is consumed. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Business promotion expenses incurred by the employee. Third example. We are on third example. Business promotion expenses incurred by the company hosted a dinner of top 100 customers. Now this is allowed in income tax as business promotion expenses, marketing expenses. However, this food service comes to an end when it is consumed. The VAT chain is broken. GST credit is not available under section 17(5) clause B. Makeup material, GST credit is not available. Why? Because it is consumed. It is used. The VAT chain comes to an end. Even though it is used by the actress or actor in acting in a film, still the GST credit is not available because that material, so VAT chain comes to an end. Then the last example is that motor car purchased by the company having a seating capacity, it is taken on hire having a seating capacity of 5 passengers used for transportation of statutory auditor, GST credit is not available. Some more examples. Membership of a club, GST credit is not available, which is used exclusively by the employees of the company. GST credit is not available. Membership of the gym that is taken by the company to be used by its employees, GST credit is not available. Employee group life insurance of the company, GST credit is not available because in all these three cases, this service is consumed by the company, by the company's employees, and the VAT chain comes to an end. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Accident policy taken by the company of those employees who travel regularly for business purpose, GST credit is available because it is an accident policy. It is not health or life insurance of the employees. Professional indemnity policy taken for the partners by the partnership firm, GST credit is available. The specific ineligibility is only for employees' life and health insurance. Now, there is one more concept of worst contract in GST. Worst contract in GST is defined in section 2 clause 119. I will discuss certain summary points of the worst contract. I will give you summary. First thing is that worst contract deemed is service. In service tax regime, in old regime, there were huge litigations on whether this is service or whether this is goods and whether VAT is payable or service tax is payable. In GST, it is defined, deemed as services. Worst contract is a service. Worst contract is only related to the immovable property. In no other cases there is a worst contract. First, it is deemed to be service. It is only related to immovable property. Third, this is third point, summary points of that is third point. It involved transfer of property in goods in execution of the works contract. The expenses, if capitalized, ITC is not available. It means if the expenses are repair in nature, ITC is available. The test is that it is fixed to earth. What is the meaning of works contract? It is fixed to earth and it cannot be removed without damaging that item or without damaging that property. The GST credit is not available in these cases. Then, if there are certain exceptions, if the works contract is subcontracted, then that subcontractor when charge GST, the main contractor, the GST credit is available. The works contract, if it is related to plant and machinery, the GST credit is available. Plant and machinery means it is used for manufacture, it is fixed to earth, and that plant and machinery will be used for manufacture. In that case, the GST credit is available. I have directly given the summary and not gone through the definition part of it. Now let's take some examples, live examples, when the GST credit is available, when GST credit is not available, when the expenses are incurred in relation to the works contract. First is building civil work. Building civil work is generally related to the immovable property. It is fixed to earth, therefore the GST credit is not available. Plumbing work, it is fixed. You cannot remove it without damaging that plumbing or without damaging that property. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Luster paint, again, it is fixed on the wall. You cannot remove it. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Verified tile flooring, yes, GST credit is not available because it is fixed. Air conditioning work. Air conditioning work is generally plant and machinery. Therefore, the GST credit is available. Then table chairs. Table chairs are movable item. It is not fixed to earth. GST credit is available. When you will sell that table, you will sell that after usage. When you will sell that table or chair, you will sell it as table and chair only. GST credit is available. Electrical work, even if it is concealed, you can very well remove it and fix it, replace it. Therefore, the GST credit is available. LAN system, same logic. Fire alarm system, it is kept on the floor. You can remove it without damaging the property. Therefore, the GST credit is available. CCTV, HDMI, GST credit is available because it is not fixed in such a way that it will not damage to the property while removing. The next point is section 17(5) FGHI. We will quickly go through this. These are not a much regular items. What are these items? The goods and services which are purchased by the businessman from the dealer who is registered under section 10 of CGST Act, that is a composition under composition scheme. The GST credit is not available. Goods or services used for personal consumption. Frankly speaking, I have not understood the purpose of the entry of this clause. Because if you see section 16, it specifically mentions that the input tax credit is available in respect of the material, asset or services purchased to be used in the course or furtherance of business. So if certain things are purchased for personal consumption, the GST credit is not available under section 16 only. However, maybe to make the things much clear, it is again included in section 17(5) as if it is used for personal consumption, the GST credit is not available because you are ultimately consumed. The VAT chain comes to an end. Therefore, the GST credit is not available. Goods lost, stolen, destroyed, written off, disposed of by way of a gift or free sample. We'll discuss. I have to discuss many things. In a separate slide, we will discuss this. Any tax paid in accordance with provision of section 74, 129 and 130 of CGST Act. These are the fraud cases. Let's take one example for this. You may be knowing there is a live example. You may be knowing that there is a place, Shivakashi in Tamil Nadu. There, the businessman was doing a business on cash basis. He purchased the material. He sold that trackers. No GST invoice, nothing. GST officer caught that person. Officer asked to pay the GST. on output. At that time, that businessman cannot say that, sir, you are asking me to pay the GST on output side, so please allow me the credit, input credit, because I have purchased that material and then crackers were manufactured and sold. That is not allowed. That is what is this clause. Input tax credit is not available in case of fraud cases as per the provision of section 74, 129 and section 130 of the CGST Act. Let's see some examples relating to this clause. That is goods purchased from composition dealer. Basically, composition dealer is not allowed to levy the GST on the invoice. So there is no question of availing the credit on the goods purchased from composition dealer or services availed from the composition dealer. The next point is important. And let's take an example that there is a chemical which is an input purchased by the business and transported from one place to another place. And that chemical tends to evaporate. It is a normal thing that the chemical will get evaporate. So GST credit is not to be reversed. There was a case law in the old regime. Madras Court in R Steels Limited held that when the chemical is evaporated in a normal course, it tends to evaporate. GST credit is not to be reversed. Okay, it's available. Next example, goods lost during transportation due to accident. This is abnormal case that the materials are purchased and that when that material was transported from one place to another, that truck met an accident, the goods are destroyed. GST credit is not available on those material purchased because this is abnormal case. Second last example, crockery set purchased by the company to be distributed to its employees during Diwali. It is a gift. GST credit is not available on the purchase of those crockery sets. Pen set purchased by the company to be distributed to its top 100 customers. This is also a gift. GST credit is not available in this case. I want to discuss two more examples on this concept of goods lost. Let's take the first example. The raw material A is purchased by the dealer to be used in the manufacture of a product X is lost in transit due to accident. The question is whether ITC credit is available on the purchase of that raw material A. The ITC is not available because that raw material is lost as such. Okay, then let's take another example. Raw material A is purchased. It is used in the manufacturing process and the product X is manufactured. Product X is destroyed due to fire, rain in a factory. Whether the GST credit is available on raw material A, which was purchased, used in manufacture, and the X was lost. The final product X was lost. The GST credit is available because it is transformed. The raw material A is transformed and manufactured the product X. Therefore, the GST credit is available on purchase of the raw material A. How to read the entry? Let's go back to that entry. Oh, it's not moving. What is that entry is that the goods lost as such. Here in the second example, this is not lost as such. The raw material A is transformed to the product X, which is manufactured. Raw material A vanish its identity and product X is destroyed due to fire in the factory. The ITC credit on raw material A is available. Thank you. This is how I sum up the provision relating to the block credit. If you are having any questions relating to the GST, you can contact me at my email ID catusharji@gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell, which is 8080980684, between 9:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Thank you.